Commander Vextar's compound eyes swept across the pristine white corridors of the GSS Mercy's Edge, the Galactic Coalition's largest medical frigate. His chitinous exoskeleton clicked softly with each movement. As he addressed the assembled medical staff in the main briefing chamber, 16 different species stood before him, representing the finest medical minds the Coalition had to offer. They were about to receive news none of them wanted to hear, as many of you suspected. Vextar began, his mandibles translating his chemical signals into galactic standard. Through the translator implanted in his thorax, the integration protocols have reached our department. We will be receiving human medical personnel within the next standard cycle. The reaction was immediate. Dr. Zelfric, a Kryn whose silvery tentacles housed some of the most sophisticated neural clusters in known space, released a cloud of distressed pheromones. Physician Court, a massive Borvelian whose forearms had saved countless lives, made a rumbling sound of displeasure that rattled the viewing screens on the walls. Commander, Zelfric's tentacles writhed in agitation. Surely there has been an error. Humans have been spacefaring for barely 20 cycles. Their medical knowledge is primitive at best. We operate under precision protocols developed over millennia. They still use physical scalpels and emotional reasoning, added Dr. Shannara, a crystalline etheri whose body literally rang with disapproval. I've reviewed their medical literature. They become attached to their patients. They experience distress when patients die. It's thoroughly unprofessional. Vextar's antennae twitched in what his species used to indicate reluctant agreement. Nevertheless, the Coalition Council has mandated full integration. The humans saved 3 colony worlds during the Kresh incursion last cycle. Political capital has been earned. We will accommodate them, observe them, and compile a thorough report on their inadequacies for the review board. Perhaps then we can have them reassigned to something more suitable. Supply logistics. Perhaps. He dismissed the assembly and returned to his private office, settling his considerable mass into the chair designed for his physiology. Through the viewport, he could see the endless stars of the Sagittarius Arm, so different from his home world's crowded sky. Vextar had commanded medical facilities for 40 standard years. He had seen every major battlefield in the Coalition's recent history. He knew the calculus of triage like he knew the chemical composition of his own hemolymph. When resources are limited, you save those most likely to survive and most useful to the war effort. It was logical. It was necessary. It was the only way to maximize survival rates across entire populations. The humans, he suspected, would not understand this. The transport shuttle arrived precisely on schedule, which Vextar supposed he should appreciate. At least humans understood punctuality. He watched through the docking bay observation window as the airlock cycled, and the human medical team emerged. There were 6 of them, all wearing the dark blue uniforms that Earth's military seemed to favor. The one in front was clearly the leader, a female human with skin the color of polished teak, and hair pulled back in a severe bun. She carried herself with an odd combination of confidence and wariness, her eyes those strange, mobile eyes that humans had scanning the docking bay with obvious assessment. "Commander Vextar?" she asked, her translator rendering his name with acceptable accuracy. She did not offer her hand, which he appreciated. She had clearly studied coalition protocol. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, Lieutenant Commander in the United Earth Medical Corps. This is my team." She introduced them quickly. Dr. James Morrison, a massive male with dark skin and gentle eyes. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, small and fierce-looking. Dr. Marcus Webb, who seemed barely out of adolescence. Nurse practitioner Robert Johnson, and medical technician Linda Vasquez. All young, all watching everything with those unsettling mobile eyes. "Welcome aboard the Mercy's Edge," Vexstar said formally. "I trust your journey was acceptable." "Efficient," Sarah responded. "We're eager to begin work. When can we see the facility?" "Immediately, if you wish. Though I should warn you, we currently have 17 critical cases in the intensive care ward. The triage protocols may differ from what you're accustomed to on Earth." Something flickered across Sarah's face. Vexstar couldn't read human expressions well yet, but he thought it might have been challenge. "I'm sure we'll manage, Commander." The tour of the medical facility took 3 standard hours. Vexstar watched the humans carefully, noting their reactions. They asked intelligent questions about the equipment, nodding with apparent understanding when he explained the various alien physiologies they might encounter. They took detailed notes on their personal datapads. They seemed, despite his prejudices, remarkably competent. It was when they reached the intensive care ward that everything changed. "This is our critical care facility," Vexstar explained, gesturing with one of his middle limbs at the rows of medical pods. "We currently have 17 patients, as I mentioned. 12 are expected to survive with standard treatment. 5 are," he paused, searching for the right term in galactic standard, "unsalvageable. We keep them comfortable while we focus resources on those who can be saved." Sarah had stopped walking. "Unsalvageable?" "Yes. Their injuries or illnesses have progressed beyond the point where treatment would be effective. Given our resource constraints, it would be wasteful to show me." Sarah's voice had gone flat. Vexstar's antennae twitched with confusion. But he led her to the isolation section, where the 5 unsalvageable cases were maintained. A Dracon pilot with massive organ failure. A Kresh soldier whose central nervous system had been catastrophically damaged. A civilian Aetheri whose crystalline structure was fracturing from the inside out. 2 Borvelians who had been caught in an explosive decompression. The humans moved among the pods, checking readings, examining scans. Their faces growing progressively darker, with some emotion Vexstar couldn't identify. "You're just keeping them sedated," Dr. Morrison said quietly, "waiting for them to die." "We are keeping them comfortable," Vexstar corrected. "Their conditions are terminal given available treatments. To invest resources in futile, nothing is futile," Sarah interrupted. She was staring at the Kresh soldier, her jaw set in a way that Vexstar's brief study of human anatomy suggested indicated determination. "This one, you've classified him as brain dead?" "The Kresh neural structure is particularly vulnerable to certain types of radiation. The damage is diffuse, but not complete," Sarah finished, reading the scans. "Septic bridges are damaged, not destroyed. Neural plasticity protocols might. The Kresh do not have neural plasticity," Vexstar said firmly. "Their brains are fixed structures, but humans do. Dr. Tanaka interjected. And we've used neural bridge therapy to treat similar conditions. If we could adapt the treatment, that would be experimental, Vextar said, his translator doing its best to convey his growing alarm. Untested. We do not conduct experiments on dying patients. Then what do you do? Sarah asked, and now her voice carried an edge that made Vextar's carapace prickle with instinctive unease. Just let them die without trying? We make them comfortable while focusing our efforts on those we can save with proven methods. It is logical. It is efficient. It's giving up. Sarah turned to face him fully, and Vextar found himself taking an involuntary step backward. There was something in those human eyes, something fierce and terrible. Commander Vextar, with all due respect to your experience and your protocols, my team and I didn't come here to watch people die. We came here to save lives. All lives. If you have patients you've given up on, then I'm formally requesting permission to treat them. That is highly irregular. Is it prohibited? Vextar's antennae waved in agitation. No, but then we'll need access to your pharmaceutical database, your equipment fabrication lab, and these 5 pods. We'll also need authorization to administer experimental treatments with informed consent. From the patient's next of kin, Sarah's tone had shifted into something brisk and professional, as if the matter was already settled. Time is critical. How quickly can you get us those authorizations? Vextar found himself staring at this strange, stubborn creature who had been on his ship for less than 4 hours, and was already upending decades of established protocol. He should refuse. He should cite regulations and chain of command and proven methodologies. He should explain, again, that resources were finite and hope was not a medical strategy. But something in that fierce human gaze stopped him. Perhaps it was curiosity about what these primitives thought they could accomplish. Perhaps it was the political reality that the Coalition Council would not appreciate him, obstructing their prized human allies. Or perhaps, and this unsettled him most, perhaps it was a tiny, long-buried part of himself that wanted to see someone try. I will authorize access, he heard himself saying. But I want it noted in the official records that these treatments are experimental and initiated against my medical recommendation. Noted, Sarah said crisply. Then, impossibly, she smiled. Thank you, Commander. You won't regret this. Vextar was quite certain he would. But the humans were already moving, already coordinating, already diving into the medical databases with an intensity that reminded him uncomfortably of the human combat pilots he'd heard about. He retreated to his office and filed the appropriate notifications, then settled into wait. By his calculations, the humans would exhaust themselves within a day, maybe 2, and then accept the reality of triage protocols like every other species before them. He was wrong. 36 standard hours later, Vextar stood in the intensive care ward, staring at monitor displays that his considerable medical experience told him should not be showing. What they were showing, the creche soldier, the one with the terminal neural damage, was awake. Not just awake, but responsive. The neural scan showed new synaptic pathways forming, bridges being constructed by some combination of human neural growth factors. and crash metabolic enhancers that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. The Dracon pilot's organ failure had been halted, then reversed, through a treatment protocol that involved something the humans call stem cell therapy, combined with Dracon regenerative enzymes. The pilot was sleeping naturally now, all vital signs approaching normal ranges. The Etheri civilian's crystalline structure had been stabilized, using a matrix of human bone growth stimulants and Etheri resonance therapy. The fractures were still there, but they were no longer propagating, and preliminary scans suggested actual healing was beginning. The two Borvelians were still critical, but their odds had gone from certain death to possible survival, which was more than Vexstar had thought possible. And the humans? Vexstar found them in the medical bay, working. Dr. Chen was bent over a microscope, examining something while dictating notes. Dr. Morrison was running simulations on a holographic display, his massive hands moving with surprising delicacy. Dr. Tanaka was in surgery, on the supposedly unsalvageable patients while Dr. Webb monitored from outside the sterile field. Nurse Johnson and Technician Vasquez were coordinating with the ship's medical staff, teaching them the new protocols, integrating human and coalition medicine in real time. None of them had slept more than a few hours in total. They looked exhausted, with dark circles under those strange eyes and a drawn quality to their faces. They should have been collapsing from fatigue. Instead, they were working with fierce, focused intensity. Commander, Dr. Chen noticed him and straightened, rubbing her eyes. Good timing. I need to discuss the Borvelians' case with you. I think we can save them, but it's going to require a procedure that's never been attempted on their species before. You've already achieved the impossible with the others, Vexstar heard himself say. Explain your procedure, as Sarah outlined her. Plan something involving human, cardiovascular technology adapted to the Borvelian. Quadruple heart system. Vexstar found his understanding of medicine shifting. These humans didn't see patients as statistics or resource allocation problems. They saw them as individuals, as lives worth fighting for regardless of odds or efficiency calculations. It was illogical. It was inefficient. It was expensive in terms of time, energy, and materials. It was also producing results that decades of coalition medical science had deemed impossible. Do it, Vexstar said when she finished. Whatever you need. You have authorization. Sarah smiled that fierce, unsettling human expression and turned back to her work. As Vexstar left the medical bay, he heard her speaking to her team. All right, people. 2 more lives to save. Let's show them what human medicine can do. Behind him, the supposedly primitive, emotional, unprofessional human medics dove back into their work with renewed intensity. Vexstar retreated to his office and began the first draft of his report to the Coalition Council. It would not be the report he had anticipated writing. Not at all. The humans had been on his ship for less than 2 standard days, and they had already changed everything. And somewhere in his ancient, logical, protocol-driven mind, Commander Vexstar felt something he had not experienced in many years. Hope. 3 standard weeks after the humans' arrival, the entire Coalition fleet knew about the mad healers aboard the Mercy's Edge. Word had spread through the informal, networks that connected soldiers and spacers across species lines. The humans didn't just treat their patients, they waged war on death itself. Commander Vextar had watched his tidy, efficient medical facility transform into something resembling organized chaos. The humans had reorganized the intensive care ward, implementing something called rapid response protocols. They had convinced or bullied Vextar wasn't entirely sure which his staff into cross-training in human medical techniques. They had, in typical human fashion, refused to accept that any case was truly hopeless until every possible option had been exhausted. The results were undeniable. The Mercy's Edge now had a patient survival rate 37% higher than any other medical ship in the Coalition fleet. Officers were requesting transfers to serve under the human doctors who wouldn't let you die. Even the Kresh High Command, notoriously difficult to impress, had sent a formal commendation after the recovery of their supposedly brain-dead pilot. But Vextar had also learned something unsettling about humans during those 3 weeks. Their dedication to preserving life was matched only by their willingness to defend it. He was about to learn exactly what that meant. The attack came without warning. Vextar was in his office, reviewing Dr. Chen's latest impossible treatment protocol, when the ship's alarm systems screamed to life. His compound eyes flicked to the tactical display, and his hemolymph went cold. All hands. Battle stations. Captain Tvek's voice crackled over the comm system. Tvek was a veteran Saurian commander, and the edge of fear in his voice told Vextar everything he needed to know about their situation. "We are under attack by Zenith raiders. 3 heavy cruisers, multiple fighter craft, medical staff. Prepare for emergency evacuation procedures." The Zenith, of course, the lawless mercenary species that haunted the outer systems, preying on medical ships and supply convoys. They had no interest in coalition politics or peace treaties. They wanted supplies, medical equipment, and hostages to ransom. Vextar activated his comm implant. "All medical personnel, initiate evacuation protocol 7. We have 93 patients aboard, including 30 to critical cases. Begin transfer to evacuation pods immediately." Commander. Sarah Chen's voice, calm and steady despite the circumstances. "We need to talk. Dr. Chen, there is no time for... I'm on my way to your office." 60 seconds. She arrived in 45, moving with that peculiar human combination of speed and efficiency. Dr. Morrison was right behind her, carrying what looked like weapons cases. Behind them came the rest of the human medical team, all armed with a mix of medical equipment and decidedly non-medical gear. "We're not evacuating," Sarah said without preamble. Vextar's antennae twitched in confusion. "Dr. Chen, the Zenith are notorious for their treatment of medical personnel. They will capture this ship or destroy it. The evacuation protocols exist for 30 to critical patients." Sarah interrupted. "You said it yourself. They can't be moved safely. Evacuation would kill most of them. Better than what the Zenith will do to them. To us, no." The single word carried such absolute conviction that Vextar found himself speechless. Sarah continued, "We're not abandoning our patients. We'll hold the medical bay until the fleet can respond or until the captain drives them off. Dr. Chen, you are medical personnel. You are not trained for commander. Dr. Morrison's deep voice was surprisingly gentle. Every human military medic receives combat training. We're not soldiers, but we're not helpless either. And our oath is clear. We protect our patients. All of them, always. This is insane, Vexstar said. But even as he said it, he was running the calculations. The evacuation would take at least 20 minutes. The Zenith would breach the ship in less than 15 if the fleet couldn't drive them off. Many patients would die in the transfer. More would die if they were captured. The humans were right. Staying and defending was actually the logical choice. When had he started thinking like a human? Very well, he heard himself say. What do you need? Sarah's smile was sharp as a surgical laser. Everything. The medical bay transformed in 12 minutes. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, coordinating with Vexstar's staff to convert their hospital into a fortress. Non-essential equipment was moved to create defensive positions. Critical patients were consolidated into the most protected areas. And the humans themselves. Vexstar watched in fascination as they unpacked their weapons. Not just sidearms, though they had those too, but an array of weapons that seemed specifically designed for close-quarters combat. Dr. Morrison assembled something that looked like a heavy plasma rifle with practiced ease. Dr. Tanaka had a pair of compact energy pistols that she handled with disturbing familiarity. Even young Dr. Webb produced a shotgun, an actual chemical propellant shotgun from his gear, and checked it with the casual competence of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Human medical personnel carry all this? Vexstar asked weakly. Standard deployment kit, Sarah replied, checking her own rifle. We learned a long time ago that hostile forces like to target medics. The Geneva Convention only works when both sides agree to follow it. Out here, she chambered around with a decisive click. We defend ourselves and our patients. The ship shuddered as the Zenith weapons found their mark. The lights flickered, and Vexstar's tactical display showed hull breaches in sections 3 through 7. The enemy would reach the medical bay in minutes. Dr. Zelfric, Dr. Court. Sarah was already issuing orders, her voice carrying the authority of a combat commander. You're in charge of triage during the fighting. Anyone who goes down gets immediate treatment, but non-life-threatening injuries wait. Dr. Webb. Dr. Tanaka, you're on the main entrance. Morrison, you're with me on the secondary access corridor. Commander Vexstar, I need you coordinating between the medical staff and keeping the captain informed of our status. You are not in command here, Vexstar said, but his protest sounded weak even to his own auditory organs. I am now, Sarah replied, and there was steel in her voice. Because I'm the one who knows how to fight and heal at the same time. Trust me, Commander, I've done this before. Before Vexstar could respond, the first Zenith breached the medical bay. The Zenith were nightmares given form 8-limbed horrors with chitinous armor, and a complete disregard for anything resembling mercy. They poured through the blast door, energy weapons blazing, clearly expecting minimal resistance from medical personnel. They were catastrophically wrong. Dr. Tanaka moved first, her compact pistols tracking targets with inhuman precision. 2 Zenith dropped before they cleared the doorway. Dr. Webb's shotgun roared, the archaic weapon proving devastatingly effective in close quarters. The lead Zenith staggered back, and the ones behind it hesitated for a crucial moment. That moment cost them. Dr. Morrison's heavy plasma rifle opened up, and the corridor became hell. But what truly shocked StoryWhat made his analytical medical mind struggle to process. What he was witnessing was that the humans never stopped being medics even while they were fighting. Contact. Left side. Sarah called out, firing controlled bursts. Caught. Patient in Pod 7 is showing elevated stress markers. Sedation increased by 0.3. The massive Borvelian physician didn't question the order, moving to adjust the medication while the battle raged around him. Morrison. 3 more coming through, Dr. Tanaka reported clinically. Webb needs to reload. Cover him. On it, Morrison responded, his massive form moving to shield the younger doctor while maintaining suppressive fire. Chen, patient in Pod 12 is coding. Zelfric, handle it, Sarah ordered, dropping a Zenith with a headshot that would have impressed any combat specialist. I'm pinned down. Dr. Zelfric's tentacles were already moving, his neural clusters analyzing the patient's vitals even as energy bolts scorched the air above him. Cardiac arrhythmia. Administering corrective enzymes. Good, Sarah said, reloading without looking away from her sector. Tanaka, how's your ammo? 60%. Make it count. They're going to try to overwhelm us. They did try. Wave after wave of Zenith raiders pushed into the medical bay, and wave after wave were cut down by fire that was precise, controlled, and absolutely merciless. The humans fought with a coordination that spoke of years of training, covering each other's positions, calling out threats and targets, moving with a fluid grace that belied their reputation as a young, inexperienced species. And through it all, they never stopped being doctors. Patient in Pod 19 is going into shock. Nurse Johnson called out, Webb, cover me, Dr. Morrison said immediately, slinging his rifle and moving to the patient's side. His large hands, which moments ago had been firing high-caliber rounds into hostile aliens, now moved with delicate precision to stabilize the Dracon's vital signs. Chen, I need 5 minutes here. You've got 3, Sarah replied, dropping another Zenith. After that, they're going to breach the secondary entrance. Morrison worked faster. 2 minutes and 40 seconds later, he was back at his position, rifle up, just as the secondary entrance exploded inward. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was actually only 18 standard minutes. 18 minutes of controlled chaos, of humans fighting and healing simultaneously, of alien medical staff learning that their human colleagues were far more than they had seemed. And then Captain Tvek's voice came over the comm. Coalition reinforcements have arrived. The Zenith are retreating. Medical Bay, status report. All patients stable, Sarah reported. Her voice steady despite the smoke and the smell of discharged weapons. No casualties among the medical staff. Zenith casualties, she paused, looking around at the carnage. Significant, significant, Captain Tvek repeated, and there was something like awe in his voice. Dr. Chen, preliminary scans show you eliminated over 40 Zenith raiders. We defended our patients, Sarah replied simply. That's what medics do. As the immediate danger passed, Vextar found himself moving through the medical bay, checking on patients, assessing damage. Dr. Court was treating a minor burn on Dr. Webb's arm while the young human protested that others needed help more. Dr. Tanaka was running post-combat checks on a ferry patient who had panicked during the fighting. Dr. Morrison was helping Dr. Zelfrick repair a damaged medical pod while simultaneously monitoring 3 critical patients. And Sarah Chen stood in the center of it all, her weapon finally lowered, checking vital signs on her datapad as if the last 20 minutes had been routine. Dr. Chen. Vextar approached her cautiously. That was necessary, she finished. I told you, Commander, we don't give up on our patients. Not to disease, not to injury, and definitely not to raiders who think medical ships are easy targets. But the violence, the killing, how do you reconcile that with your medical oath? Sarah looked at him, and in her eyes, Vextar saw something ancient and implacable. Commander, every human medic learns a principle that goes back thousands of years to the very beginning of organized medicine. Our primary duty is to do no harm to our patients, to the people under our care. But that doesn't mean we're pacifists. It means we're the fiercest defenders they'll ever have. She gestured around the medical bay at the patients, some sleeping peacefully, others being tended to by the combined human and alien medical staff. These people trusted us with their lives. The Hippocratic Oath says first, do no harm. But there's an older principle, one that every human medic carries in their heart. We stand between our patients and the darkness. We fight disease. We fight injury. We fight death itself. And if we have to fight raiders, warlords, or anything else that threatens the people in our care, she smiled, and it was gentle and terrifying all at once. Then we fight that too. Vextar stood silent for a long moment, processing this. Then he said quietly, I need to update my report to the Coalition Council. What will you tell them? The truth. That human medics are not soldiers. There's something far more formidable. He paused, choosing his words carefully. They're healers who refuse to accept defeat, who view every death as a personal challenge, and who will fight the universe itself to keep their patients alive. And, Sarah prompted, and that every coalition medical ship should request human personnel immediately. Vextar finished, because when the humans say they'll keep you alive, they mean it, even if they have to kill to do it. Sarah smiled. Now you're understanding, Commander. The report that Commander Vextar filed 3 hours later would become one of the most widely distributed documents in coalition medical history. It included detailed accounts of human medical techniques, survival statistics, and tactical recommendations. But it was the conclusion that everyone remembered. We have spent millennia developing medical protocols based on logic, efficiency, and resource management. The humans have reminded us that medicine is not about protocols, it's about people. They do not calculate odds of survival. They calculate methods of treatment. They do not accept terminal diagnoses. They accept challenges. They do not view death as inevitable. They view it as the enemy. And when humans fight an enemy, they fight to win. I recommend immediate integration of human medical personnel across all coalition facilities. Not because their techniques are superior, though in many cases they are, but because their philosophy is transformative. They have taught us that the first casualty of war should never be hope. They have also taught us that healers can be warriors, that compassion can coexist with violence, and that the gentlest hands can also be the most dangerous when defending those under their care. In summary, we feared human soldiers. We should have feared human medics, because soldiers might kill you, but medics will fight heaven and hell to keep you alive. And the determination required to defeat death is far more terrifying than simple violence. Request approved. Request recommended. Request essential. Humanity's gift to the galaxy is not their weapons or their tactics. It's their refusal to accept that anyone is beyond saving. And they'll make you believe it too. 3 months later, every coalition medical ship had a human medical team. 6 months later, coalition survival rates had increased by 43% across the board. 1 year later, the Zenith Raiders learned to avoid any ship that broadcast having human medics aboard. Not because humans were better armed than other coalition personnel, but because word had spread. If you attack a human medic's patients, they will defend them with a ferocity that makes trained soldiers look hesitant. And Sarah Chen, she was promoted to Chief Medical Officer of the entire coalition fleet, where she continued her personal war against death, training a new generation of alien medics in a philosophy that was simultaneously ancient and revolutionary. Every life matters. Every patient deserves everything you can give them. And hope is not just a feeling, it's a weapon. The humans had arrived in the galaxy as newcomers, primitives with outdated technology and emotional reasoning. They had become legends, because while the galaxy had plenty of soldiers, it turned out what it really needed was healers who refused to surrender, who fought with scalpels and rifles alike, and who taught the ancient species that sometimes the most advanced medical technology was simply caring enough to try. Commander Vexstar kept a human saying posted in his office, one that Dr. Chen had taught him: medics, because people trying to kill you is bad enough without death thinking it can have you too. He had laughed when he first heard it. That chemical expression of mirth his species used. Then he had seen human medics in action, and he realized it wasn't a joke. It was a promise, and humans always kept their promises.